Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in on New Year's Day. So Happy New Year to everybody. Hope you had a very enjoyable evening. First day of 2017, of course. So for today's video, we're going to start off having a look at the centering temperature for December. We've got that in. You can see what's happened over the past month. Have a look at the Arctic Oscillation, see what's happening in the stratosphere over the North Pole. And we'll have a look at when it's week to 10 days as well. The model flip is complete in terms of the cold weather that might have been on the way for the end of the coming week and into weekend, and into the second week of January. We've gone from the possibility of mild, cold, northerly and easterly winds to mild, balmy west to southwesterly winds. A quite extraordinary turnaround in a matter of hours, and it just goes to show you how difficult it is to get cold weather in the UK, especially these days of warming. And it just, again, proves the fact that it's so difficult now for us to get cold weather and snow in this country. So, sorry about that. If you wanted cold weather and snowy conditions, it's off for the time being, and I'll show you everything that's happened in a moment. But before I get on with that, just say about the ads. It's links to articles on the page. Just have a browse through widgets and click through links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you can visit the website. And thanks very much for doing that. And a big thank you to everybody for tuning in on this New Year's Day. So we'll start off with central temperature for December. This is it. We've come out at 6.0, which is about a couple of degrees above average, or probably about a degree and a half. Significantly milder than average, but not the ridiculous sort of heat that we had in December last year. That came out at an incredible 9.7. We've never seen anything like that ever. Certainly back to 1659, probably many hundreds of years before that. So it's sort of been a sensible, warmer than average month, as opposed to last December's ridiculously, insanely warmer than average December. But nevertheless, it's still been another milder than average month. Again, we've turned out to be milder than the month that came before. So we've done this 2 years running now. November 2016 came out at 5.6. December 2016 comes out at 6.0. We did that last year. So December came out at 9.7 last year, and November 9.5. 2 years running to get November to be cooler than December is very unusual. But apparently somebody did post on YouTube a couple of days ago that we did this a long time ago, back in the early part of the 20th century. I'm not sure what the years were. Maybe it's those years just then, 1911, 1912, and 1913, perhaps. That looks a bit wrong. But anyway, we apparently did it 3 years on the trot at one point through the 20th century, that we got December to be warmer than the November before it. But it's quite unusual to do that anyway. To do it once and do it twice in a row, that is quite unusual. We've also got the yearly temperature in for 2016 as well. That's come out at 10.34, so it's been another very significantly warmer than average year. Hardly any cold weather at all, really, through the year. We did have a colder spell through April. Got a little bit on the cold and snowy side in the second half of April, which was a bit of a nuisance for anybody trying to get their garden sorted out. We didn't really want that in April. But anyway, we did have some cold weather in April. And then November was fairly chilly as well. But overall, it's been another very warm year. We have to go back quite a few years now to 2012, for the last time we came in under 10 degrees at 9.7. Actually, it's 2013, which came out at 9.61. And our last very cold year was 2010, which came out at 8.86. That was a very unusual year. It had that cold start, and then had a very cold December in 2010. But overall, they're the stats for 2016, another pretty warm year. This is the centering temperature, yearly temperatures going back into the 1700s. So we can start just there in the 1700s. And so this is the warming that took place through the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, this red line just here. Over a few years at the start of this decade, so sort of around 2007, to 2012, we actually moved the trend line downwards quite significantly. So we did go through a fairly significant cooling period from 2007 to 2012. But over the past few years, it looks like we've turned the corner on that, and we're lifting that red trend line back up again, and clearly we are significantly going through a very significant warm phase at the moment in terms of the central England temperature. Stats don't lie, and you can clearly see that warming is taking place yet again. So that cooler period from 2007 to 2012 has run out of steam, and we're reverting back to where we was in the 1980s and 1990s particularly. So the forecast at the moment is a very mixed bag, of course, because we was all anticipating some colder weather coming up at the end of the week and the weekend. That's off the cards at the moment, as I say. The Arctic Oscillation is still trending downwards. It's still trending into negative territory, but I'm not sure how seriously we should take any of the output that we're seeing at the moment after the fiasco that's occurred over the past few days. So right now we are very positive with the Arctic Oscillation. Remember, this is an indication of blocking over the North Pole. It's an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere, if you like. It isn't driving anything, it's just telling you what the atmosphere is doing. We're very positive with the Arctic Oscillation at the moment, which is sort of tying in with the mild December weather that we've had, and particularly it's very mild around Christmas. Now you see the red lines, the forecast part of this is all down. It's all going into negative territory. So in theory, we should be seeing blocking returning, and we should be losing westerlies. But as I say, the cold weather we have been anticipating, that's been removed totally. So I'm not sure how seriously, to be honest, we should take this downwards trend in the Arctic Oscillation. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there, whether we do actually eventually trend down, or whether they're completely wrong with these charts, the GFS ensembles, and we'll just finish up in mild territory again with the Arctic Oscillation staying positive. Of course, it's possible the Arctic Oscillation could go negative and we get blocking, but it's in the wrong place to deliver cold to us, because North Pole is a big place, of course, so you could get blocking that delivers a very cold punch into America or into Eurasia. And we're on the mild side of the blocking. So, as I've always said, a negative Arctic Oscillation on its own doesn't tell you that we're definitely going to have cold weather in Europe. And there is going to be some very cold weather coming up for Europe over next week, by the way. That's not changed. It's just that cold weather is going to be pushing into eastern and southeastern Europe, as opposed to getting anywhere in towards the west. The North Atlantic Oscillation is also looking pretty good, to be honest, for delivering some colder conditions. If you was to take these indexes at face value, we should be going into something quite a lot colder. So that's where we are right now with the North Atlantic Oscillation. We're around neutral, but trend with these red lines is to deliver things down into a negative territory. So in theory, it looks like the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation are both going negative, and that should be delivering us into cold weather, but there's no sign of it within the model output. So I'm a little bit of a loss actually as to what is going on at the moment. It's a very confused time, really, why the models have done this flip back into mild, when in theory everything should be setting up a cold pattern. I'm a bit of a loss to what's happened. But anyway, the indexes, the two indexes, the Arctic Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation, two indexes that we look at, they look quite good and quite well set up to be bringing some cold weather. This could be one of the things that's gone wrong. This is the stratospheric temperature over the North Pole at 30 HPA. That's like one of the top layers of the atmosphere. And we are very cold at the moment with these stratospheric temperatures. We've gone down into a very cold level. Through most of November, we were significantly milder than average with those stratospheric temperatures. But in December, we've had a bit of a crash. And when we've got a cold stratosphere over the North Pole, it's very difficult to get blocking in place. It normally ties in with a strengthened polar vortex. So that's possibly one of the things that's gone wrong. The stratosphere over the North Pole isn't in a good position at the moment to be delivering a sort of blocked pattern, excuse me, and really to get proper blocking in place, we like to see at least a significant warming up to that sort of level, and really a sudden stratospheric one which would take us up to that sort of level. So when we've got a cold stratosphere, it's always over North Pole, it's always harder to get cold blocked weather, particularly down into Europe. There are other routes to cold for America and Asia. It's easier for them to get cold, particularly America, where they've got sort of the Canadian Arctic right next to them. So it's always easier for North America to get cold weather with a cold stratosphere over the North Pole. For us, over in Europe and in the Atlantic area, it's always much harder to do that. At 10 HPA, it's a similar sort of story as well. So again, cold stratosphere over the North Pole right now at 10 HPA. That's like the top level of the atmosphere. The forecast doesn't look all that great, actually. So this is where we start off with GFS right now in terms of those stratospheric temperatures at 10 HPA over North Pole. These purple colours are the very cold temperatures that we're just looking at over the North Pole. As we run through, we do get quite a major warming occurring around Siberia, and it's trying to sort of penetrate into the Arctic. It's certainly pushing, it's certainly putting these cold temperatures in the stratosphere of the North Pole under some pressure, but not really infiltrating into the actual North Pole itself, just staying at the edges. And it looks like really most of the North Pole is keeping those cold temperatures. We saw a lot of this last winter, actually, where we kept getting rather significant warmings occurring around the edges, particularly around Siberia, but never really getting into the North Pole itself until very late on. And then we did, at the end of February, I think it was, last winter, we did get a major southern stratospheric warming, and that eventually, I think, set up the cold pattern that we established through the spring, and particularly felt in April. It probably all started with the southern stratospheric warming that occurred at the end of February. So it's very similar, really, what's happening this year compared to last year. Again, we've got these warmings trying to occur around the edges of the pole, but never really infiltrating in. And this takes up to the 17th of January, where again, it looks like the polar vortex and those cold stratospheric temperatures over the North Pole just aren't shifting. They aren't being broken down up to the middle part of January. So these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year temperature average. These are upper air temperatures, of course. So we've got this little colder snap coming up right now. Cold front is progressing down across the country, bringing a very wet, miserable day to much of England and Wales the first day of 2017. But it's introducing colder air. So we'll have a colder couple of days later today through tomorrow and into Tuesday. Then we've got something a little bit cooler coming up around the middle part of the week as well as high pressure builds in. We've got very cold air sitting just to our east. That's trying to get into west of Europe. But when we were supposed to be getting the northerly at the end of the week, which is this period just here, that's when we're supposed to get that northerly shock coming down at the end of the week and into next weekend. Now, we're actually looking at a milder than average period at the end of the week and into the weekend. So a total flip has taken place through to the end of the week and the weekend. We're bringing the air from the southwest as opposed to bringing the air down from the north. Beyond that, the GFS is trending cooler again this morning, but I'm not taking that seriously. The model is flipping and flopping so much that I think we better leave that alone, to be honest, and we don't want to get involved with any more sort of phantom northerlies from the GFS model at the moment, I don't think. So this is how things are looking on Thursday, when we've got high pressure through the country. There's that very cold air sitting just to our east. At one point it looked like we might tap into that. Look at the upper air temperatures through Scandinavia and many eastern parts, central parts of Europe. Incredible cold there. We're just on the very periphery of it, just on the very edge of that. But by Friday the high pressure's toppling down into France, and the mild southwesterly winds are returning round the top. This is forcing the cold air into the east and the southeast of Europe. There it goes, down into the Balkans, into Italy. Yes, there might be snow fairly widely across Italy, actually. Maybe even some turning up across Corsica and Sardinia, Mediterranean islands. And certainly as we go down into the Balkans and Greece and Turkey, it's going to be a lot of very cold weather coming up for them at the end of the week. They're having a really hard winter down across the southeast of Europe, and there's no sign of it letting go of its grip on them at the moment. So if you want snow, get on a plane and go to Greece. For Saturday, we find that again, we're bringing in these mild westerly winds across the country, bathed in air from off the Atlantic. All the cold air is going down into the southeast of Europe. Look how severely cold it is through the Balkans, heading in towards Greece, through Italy again, many parts looking very cold there as well. And then we go through into Sunday, when we remain in this westerly mild flow, when we should have been a couple of days ago anyway, we was forecast to be in a very cold northerly wind by that point. No, we're in this mild west or southwesterly, and that continues into the second week of January, when we did a couple of days ago have some hints that we might pull in a Siberian easterly. We remain now in this west to southwesterly flow. All the cold air remains in the east and the northeast of Europe. Out to day 10, which is Wednesday the 11th of January, looks like we're turning a little bit milder and more unsettled then, or I should say more unsettled, will still be mild, but just turning a little bit more unsettled. Also a remarkably dry period actually after today, to be honest, and it comes after a very dry December as well. So if we get a hot summer, if this dry weather continues for the next few months, we get a hot summer, I think we might have to start thinking about drought for 2017 actually, because we're not getting the winter rain that we typically get. Now we go a little bit beyond day 10, and then we do start to see the GFS playing with this northerly wind again. But after the fiasco of the last few days, let's leave that alone. We don't want to get involved with any more phantom northerlies from the GFS model. Finally, the ECMWF. So we've got high pressure through the country on Thursday. There's all the cold air that's over the majority of Europe will be in the freezer at the end of the week. That increasingly gets pushed into the east and the southeast of Europe on Friday as these milder winds come around the top of the high pressure from off the Atlantic, and then that takes into a relatively mild weekend. Not quite the southwesterly that the GFS is showing for the weekend. So you could get frost and fog actually under that ridge, but of course the real cold is over in the east and the southeast of Europe. There's the upper air temperatures with the ECMWF for Sunday, showing how cold it is again going down into many southeastern parts of Europe. Really locked in, severely cold weather through the Balkans particularly, and they're going up towards the Black Sea. And then we get through into the second week of January. There's no real sign of a change, so this takes us to day 10, where we're establishing more of a westerly flow. So maybe into the second week of January we're looking at slightly more unsettled weather, but certainly nothing particularly cold doing there up to and into the second week of January. So it's a big letdown for anybody that wants cold and wintry conditions. Sorry about that. The models have flipped over the past 24 hours. There's not much more left to say. I'm not sure quite why this has happened, other than it seems to be our fate increasingly through the winters in this country now, that we tend to find that the models struggle to, when it comes to cold weather. They do hint at it, but as it gets close to the time frame, it keeps getting push back, and push back. Now, eventually we might get some colder conditions, but certainly up to the second week of January at the moment, there's not really much evidence for it, other than the Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation charts are still looking quite good. So presumably within the ensembles that these charts are based upon, there are still many cold options occurring. But until we can bring these colder options sort of into 5 days away, I think we do have to treat them with a lot of caution this year after what has occurred over the past few days. That's it for now. It's been a bit of a longer one for this New Year's Day, but I thought I'd sort of explain everything that's going on, or try to explain everything that's going on. I've been a bit caught out by this, to be honest, what's happened over the past 24 hours. And that's it. Later on, we'll have Terry Scully's month-end forecast for January. It'll be interesting to see whether Terry is anticipating any colder conditions at any point through January. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your New Year's Day.